Say morally, again, what is morality? How would you define something as immoral?
That's a really important question. I personally believe that there are two forms of harm that we're talking about here. And the first one is suffering, and we know what suffering is. It could be physical pain, but often like emotional pain, bereavement, that kind of thing. And the second one is death as well. And when we have children, they are probably going to suffer. Like all people suffer at different points in their life. Nearly all, there might be one, some that don't. They're probably going to suffer, and they're going to die. And I think that this is harm which we're inflicting on people without their consent. Because none of us made a choice to be here. We didn't consent to being here. It's an ethical thing to bring beings into this world.
The thing is that not existing didn't do anything to stop a life from coming after not existing. So you didn't exist, but then a life was born, and now this. So why is it that antinatalists think that not being born will achieve something? That it will somehow block some other life from being imposed, had the life that's listening to this audio right now had not been the one imposed. Like, think about it. Imagine that there wasn't, but imagine that there was some kind of peaceful state of oblivion before you were born. And so what was it that caused that state to end? It was the birth of a life, just objectively a life. You can remove everything that makes you a unique individual and just see yourself as an objective life, just a body, a biological entity that is responsible for an instance of consciousness. And so it was merely the birth of a life that ended this hypothetical nothingness. So if that wasn't the life to end it, to end that nothingness, but yet there were other lives born, and we know there were lives born at the time of your birth, or after the time of your birth, or all around that time, before even. And so if it wasn't that biological entity that ended the nothingness, then it would have been one of the other ones that was born, that did come to exist, that would have been the one to end that nothingness and cause consciousness to ensue via a living brain. So there's really no escape of this imposition of a life. It's either one life or another. And so this is where most antinatalists will respond with, well, that's why we need to end all procreation. We need to end all life. But that will not achieve a state of anything pleasant. Just as whenever you go to sleep at night and you go completely unconscious, you don't experience the period of time that you're unconscious. It's just skipped over from your point of view. You didn't get to appreciate that period of time you're unconscious. It's just skipped over as if it didn't even occur. So if all life in the universe ended, that same fact would apply. There would just be no appreciation of that lack of consciousness. And so now it gets into the realm of, is there going to be a universe after the heat death of our universe? Are there other universes right now? Ours might face a heat death and end, but do we live in a multiverse where there are just an infinite amount of universes? And so one universe's end doesn't mean the end of the multiverse. It just means the end of that universe. And so if the multiverse is infinite, there's most likely life out there, a lot of it elsewhere. But even if the multiverse isn't true and it is just us and our universe ends, that doesn't mean that that another universe won't start up again the very same way that this one started up. So it gets into this realm of speculation where we can't really antinatalists can't make any assertions, and I can't really make any assertions except for that there will be no kind of appreciated state of non-existence where there's going to be like a sigh of relief or something. It's not really imaginable what it would be like if there were never consciousness ever again. But it wouldn't be appreciated. And I think if it's unappreciable, then it doesn't really achieve anything. Complete extinction of all life in the universe doesn't really achieve anything unless there is some kind of peaceful state after all consciousness has ended. But like I said, that those periods of time when we're unconscious, they're not appreciated. They're not. So it's just something very nonsensical to talk about. The desire to achieve complete extinction in the universe it's to desire nothing. It's what are you seeking really? What is achieved? So it comes back to the question of what happens after the end of our universe, or will our universe even really end? Do we really know what we're talking about with the heat death of the universe? Because not too long ago, scientists came to the conclusion that our universe is actually twice as old as previously thought. They thought it was 14.3 billion years old, but it turns out to be more like 27 billion years old. So we discover new things all the time. We don't really know what we're talking about a lot of times. So after you die, let's imagine you die and you cease to exist. The question is, will there be lives born after you die? And the answer is, well, as far as we know right now, yes. There will be humans and animal entities born, and there will be consciousness after you die. So this consciousness there will end, but there will be more consciousness being done by other brains after you die. And so there will be yet another conscious experience after this one ends. And I'm not talking about you going into another body or anything like that. It's just simply that there will be brains doing consciousness after you die. And so, that's all it was that resulted in this life is a brain doing consciousness, a brain being born and doing consciousness. After you didn't exist, but then a brain came to exist and started doing consciousness, and then conscious experience and individual conscious experience ensued, the one listening to this. And so if there will be consciousness, brains doing consciousness after you die, then one of those individual conscious experiences will come after this one, because non-existence, to cease to exist, is the very same thing that is the same as before birth, before your existence. It's non-existence was followed by life, and so non-existence once again will be followed by life, because the same situation will be occurring. There will be lives born after you die, and there will be lives existing after you die. So, if it isn't one life, it's another. So non-existence, as long as there's lives born, there will always be followed by a life, whether that non-existence is before you existed, or whether or not you came to exist, or after you ceased to exist. If the universe is infinite, then it could take trillions and trillions of years for all life could end, but then trillions and trillions of years pass, and then finally life starts up once again somewhere in the universe. And so all that period in between is skipped over from the point of consciousness. It just wasn't experienced, just like you didn't experience all the billions and billions of years before you came to exist. You don't have access because you're a physical biological brain And this biology, this brain doesn't have access to the past experience that the past consciousnesses that other brains were doing before you existed. The one scenario where procreation would be good is, well, I have to convey it in a thought experiment. So imagine a universe where there are only two planets that have life. One of those planets is hellish. Every single being there suffers night and day. And they live and die there, and yet they still procreate. They still bring new lives onto this planet, and they too suffer. And then there is the other planet where everything is good. There's a little bit of suffering, but it's much better. It's much more tolerable than the hellish planet. And so, in this scenario, because of what I explained earlier in this video, because if it isn't one life, it's another, the best thing to do would be for the beings on the good planet to procreate so that there is more chance for a good life to come after one of the bad lives. So one of the crappy lives dies, and then it's possible that one of the good lives come after that bad life has ended, because of what I explained earlier in the video about how non-existence is always followed by one life or another due to brains doing consciousness. So it would be, this is the one and only scenario that I can think of where it would be good to procreate.